Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are. We often think of the ego as something negative. People think it is a synonym to egocentrism or selfishness. This is not correct, and the ego is not necessarily a bad thing. Being selfish is not the same as having a strong ego. An ego is what we have as long as we feel alive. The ego is nothing more than an identification mechanism. It is what makes us say, this is me, this is mine, and this is a part of me. So today I would like to share a reflection on what is the success of life. Life as a phenomenon, and what would be the end goal of existence itself. And also what I mean when I say we can root for many teams, not only for ourselves. So the ego is a mechanism of identification, as I said, although the identity we come up with and consider for ourselves is impermanent. The ego is a dynamic mechanism, but we don't realize this easily. Let me explain. When I cling to a certain idea of who I am and I get recognition and praise, I will feel great. I feel accepted, everyone likes me, I gain merit. But when I cling too much to a certain fixed idea of who I am, and if I don't get recognition or praise, I will feel unbalanced because of my bet in this particular version of me was a wrong bet, and therefore I lost the game, so to speak, and I inevitably end up suffering more. In one way or another, the sense of self is clouded, because when people have us in high regard, our mind is occupied with good feelings and we get drunk, we drown in all that praise. But if people don't have us in high regard, we get caught by the tornado or cyclone of negative feelings because of the disappointment in ourselves, precisely because of the inflexibility, because of clinging too much. That's why we don't realize the ego as a self-identification mechanism. We naturally tend to be entangled in all that. It is best to remind that everything passes and that obsessive attachment is a great source of suffering. We must constantly adapt to impermanence. When we recognize that we belong to various teams or layers of belonging, we begin to realize that our identity is indeed identities in plural. For example, I am me, whatever that means, in my head, and then in yours, which I consider to be a different team altogether. By affinity, I am linked to my parents. It is a tighter connection, and then to my country, or political ideology, or philosophy, or religion, and then to all human beings, and then to other animals, mammals, and so forth. Now, I propose the following thought experiment by first asking, what is success in relation to life? Imagine that life, not just here on Earth, but theoretically, all forms of life throughout the universe, if there are indeed others. Imagine that life has a drive. Some may say that what I'm saying is nothing else than a purpose dictated by the universe, God, nature, or whatever. Existentialists will say there is no intrinsic purpose, just a purpose made up by us humans. But let's not say purpose. Let's not use that word for this thought experiment. It's just a drive forward. And remember, I'm not saying human beings exclusively. I'm saying life in general has a drive. But the question we might ask is, a drive to what? If there would be no restrictions, I believe life as a phenomenon would exist forever. But there are restrictions so far as we know because of physics. But let's go further. Life would not only be immortalized, life would like to unveil everything. I believe that life would infect every physical and metaphysical corner of existence, one step at a time, in the time intervals of eons, thousands of millions of years. So the same would be true if we humans had that opportunity. But what if this eternal unveiling and discovery of the universe and the life form itself turned itself into the universe? Wouldn't be a fate for humans, but rather for another life form, or even something else we today don't consider alive, that we consider inanimate? Would we still be motivated to root for life, or that inanimate autonomous thing? It's what I'm asking. Because we tend to look only to ourselves. But we won't win, always. So life, to unveil the universe and its mysteries, life needs to conquer places, forms of consciousness, technology. It needs to learn how to move matter and energy. That is success of life. In other words, life must clear new grounds, expand and fill every possible thing with its own nature. If it's the life form that gets, if the life form that gets at the end game of the universe, so to speak, of existence, if it wouldn't be humans, but instead a dolphin species, because humans went extinct because of whatever reason, let's imagine, every corner of the universe will be the dolphin's nature. So perhaps that will be the absolute victory of life, whether represented by a species or just an individual representing that entire species. Or a legacy, you see. Humans will transform themselves in a way that future humans won't recognize or won't have a direct empathy with us in this time and space. So if we think about this idea of an ultimate victory, a conquering of the universe in all aspects, in all existence, who would I root for first? I would root for myself. I would root for myself. I would want to explore every corner of the universe and occupy all spaces, even through time, into the past, and conquer every mystery there is, and acquire every bit of wisdom until nothing remains unknown. And of course, as a process into infinity, gobbling down all unknowns, there will be just unknowns embodied in me. And maybe when I reach at the end of time, I would find God, or realize that the throne is empty and that I can sit on it. Of course, each of us has this bias. We would root for ourselves first. We root for ourselves individually, and this is normal. This is not unhealthy, if it's not an obsession, that is, because we also belong to many other teams. So if it's not me, then who would I root for? So this exercise in expansion begins with self-interest first, but I cannot succeed always. I'm certain of this, and my ego learned to be flexible. My interest expands, and I will root for someone or something that is closest to me, and then further apart. Who or what is closest? My idea of myself makes a part of me, and this is the closest I can get. This is primal. I root for this first naturally. Then I root for my family. If family fails to prevail, fails to reach the end game of existence itself, the end game of time and stuff, and simulation, dream, illusion, God, no God, mystery, whatever it is, call it what you will. The expansion of the ego continues. I will root for the local community, then the entire humanity, and then surrounding nature. And if some part of nature doesn't get to the end game of existence, and the end game of space and time and the universe, and then I will root for, well, the sun. And of course, that won't do it. Then I will root for our galaxy, Milky Way. And then The universe itself and existence itself, the idea of existence, I root for that. Anything can be placed in this idea. You can even identify with an inanimate thing, a rock, a human artifact. When we open this frontier of the expanded self, when we dissolve the exclusivity of identity, a sense of unity, I think, emerges. A sense of unity with the whole is born. The key lies perhaps in what we identify with. And the crucial thing is the victory of the other is my victory. And we can root for all of them, wishing that anyone may reach the final glimpse of the mystery if any one of us doesn't get there. And it must not necessarily be life. It can be a mineral, because I still can identify myself with that. Maybe I think it has special properties, or someone offered it to me and I feel it is special. I identify with it. You see? Something that consciousness can identify with. That's the most important. Oh yes, now I said it. Because the real question to ask is not, what is the ultimate success of life, but what is the ultimate success of consciousness? Because I identify myself with things that are not alive in the common sense, you see? So when we think we have our identity permanently fixed, this is only an illusion of control, because everything is impermanent and dynamic, but it serves good enough for us to function. It's the other side of the coin, and it is equally important. I'm not saying to not have an ego, to have no ego. I'm not saying that. That is simply a bullshit thing to say and try, because we are indeed individuals, and as long as we are alive, we have ego. It is the clinging too much to any identity that can be problematic. A strong desire to be instead of becoming, that will lead most likely to a higher degree of suffering. Of our individual strength is maintaining the idea of the self, that it will fade sooner or later. And this is strength. So how do we find inner peace in such a situation? An universe that may or may not care, an existence that may or may not lead to the fate of that ultimate success. Well, I think it is by identifying ourselves with all that we make a part of. For instance, everything that comes to my senses and perception, that comes to my consciousness, has become just now a part of me. Of this I am certain, and things that we can't comprehend or nor apprehend with our limited consciousness, maybe that unknown makes it a part of me as well. I don't know. But what I know for sure is that what comes to my consciousness is already mine, in the sense that a part of that is a part of me. If we recognize that we are not just an isolated point, if we admit that the victory of the other is also mine in some way, then something inside us calms down. This is a way to achieve inner peace. We personally do not need to win all the time to feel fulfilled. We can smile when the other wins, because we also find ourselves in them. To conquer the universe or transcend time, space and matter, perhaps we will not be the ones to do it individually, you know. Perhaps it will be another human being, or even an animal, a plant, or a mineral. We don't need to win all the time. And thus, this question arises as well, which is, how can we find inner peace? By identifying ourselves with more than we think, literally. So, as I said before, I can identify myself with the Milky Way, with the universe, but someone might say that eventually there is a heat death of the universe. We will die with the universe. Well, I will identify with that. But one might say that it is nothing at all That's what I'm saying. Identifying with the death of the universe, that's just a cop-out. Unless there is a quantum fluctuation comes up with a Boltzmann brain or something, you know. You see, it is a mystery. And the ultimate team, the absolute group of what we make a part, it is the mystery. Something must remain. And that something is constituted by the same substance as everything else. But it's mystery. This individuality, this subjectivity that separates us is a great mystery. And ultimately, being able to identify with this mystery is the ultimate realization, I think. It is the set of all sets, so to speak. Identify with that and you will sit at the throne. Thinking in this way is the realization of being, of existence. It is the mirror, it is to mirror our identity onto everything, because everything has the same inherent substance, the mystery, which is an absolute consciousness. It is the absolute consciousness, by the way. So this transformation of our identity is simultaneously like a disintegration, but it is not a disintegration to a common sense of emptiness. It is a disintegration towards all other things, equivalent to a kind of emptiness, yes, but more like a bridge that connects to impermanence, spontaneity, mystery, and so forth. The ego, that which identifies, ceases to be narrow, kind of like a prison that it was and now becomes instead a bridge. Life is a constant change in a universe in internal expansion in our minds. What lies beyond all that frontier? More mind, perhaps? Or nothing? Who knows? But we know something for certain. It is a mystery. The same that makes up you and me. It is the substance that permeates everything. But I said in the thought experiment that life would want to infect every corner of existence if no brakes would hold, right? That consciousness will permeate everything. An absolute consciousness, that is. So in conclusion, if we consider the mystery as something fundamentally us, doesn't that bring comfort? If I identify with the mammal because I am a mammal, I root for that. If I can look at the pole star and identify with it, I do that. If I can identify stuff, the likelihood for that thing to be an element for identifying myself is greater. So what I witness, I am that too, by extension. We can be more broad in our identification, even if that means letting go of our immediate idea of the self. Why? To suffer less? But there has to be a stable idea of the self as well, so we can function in daily life and be happy with the idea of ourselves. When we broaden our ego in this way, I feel that we still have the drive to succeed for ourselves. Yet we are no longer trapped by a sense of exclusivity, you know? If it's not I who reaches the endgame of existence, I can celebrate still the victories of others. Because we can all see in the other, whatever it may be, a reflection of ourselves. So, thank you for watching until the end, for staying with me this far. Don't forget to hit the notification bell and leave a like. Goodbye, and until next time.